Welcome everybody to an edition of WCW 1994 here in TW 2020, as it's time for another big show of the year, as it's Slamboree 1994 in the reporting because I forgot to put it at the right place, but well, not the end of the world or anything, that's actually close enough to where it really was, and I think Illinois, I'd have to double check. Regardless, it's Slamboree 1994, and again, before we actually start the show, again, a quick little thing. I've got the link in the description to my Patreon, where again, if you follow that and sign up, you get stuff like, you can either just, sign up for $1 a month, and you just get, my sincere thanks, and, your name in every description of the video, or you can sign up for a little more and get stuff like ability to put your own character into one of my series, ability to, of course, help me make booking choices, background stuff I've written up for the series, just my random creative writing for stuff like Observers, Urine Awards, backstage segments, all that fun stuff, and of course, access to the very databases, and if you, pledge enough, you get to, put your own storylines or signings. But again, not a huge deal, I'm going to continue my series no matter what, but this is just something extra if people want to. But anyway, let's get on with the actual show. We start out with our opening video, focusing on the big unified world title match between Sting and Rude, as that gets to 79, and we move forward to our first match. As first, of course, out come Flamingo in Vegas, as they act cocky, as Johnny B. Bad comes out without a partner, and then a bad ripoff of Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit hits, and out comes Johnny B. Bad's partner, Diamond Dallas Page. Gets a decent pop 57, as yes, DDP is Johnny B. Bad's partner, and they're going to be a team taking on Flamingo and Vegas. Again, decent response for DDP, as he's over, but not super over, and I brought him as babyface simply because we have way too many heels. So, he'll have this sort of cocky face character right from the start, as opposed to we're coming in as sort of the braggadocious heel. We can still eventually go back to that, just a case of the numbers being where they are, but he was being talented and over enough that I had to bring him in. Anyway, on to the actual match. As in a decent match, Johnny B. Bad and Diamond Dallas Page defeats Flamingo and Vinny Vegas in 11:35, while DDP pins Scotty Flamingo with the Diamond Cutter. Yeah, I'm jumping right to him having the Diamond Cutter, because why not? So back and forth match, Vegas, looks impressive first with his power spots and such, but, Page does some brawling of his own. Bad does a bit of high flying and does his own brawling. Flamingo comes in with his cheap shots, but eventually, things break down to a four-way. And that's just enough as, DDP's in the ring with Flamingo. DDP gets out of an attempted DDT from Flamingo, powers out of it, swings Flamingo around, hits him with the Diamond Cutter. 1, 2, 3 in the ring. Nowhere for the heels to go, as they get a big win here. As like I said, overall this gets a 61, DDP gets a 48, Johnny Bad gets a 60, Vinny Vegas gets a 56, and Johnny Flamingo gets a 53. So solid win. And of course, post-match, Bad and DDP celebrate to a 67. Then after that, we have our next big match, as it's Ted DiBiase versus Ricky Steamboat. Of course, Ricky Steamboat comes in as the strong babyface, after DiBiase was DiBiase and was putting money in lower mid-carders and, frankly, jobbers' mouth for a couple weeks. So he came out, and of course, they have their own, beef in another federation. But now they're here, both in World Championship Wrestling, battling each other, and this is a very solid, classic U.S. Pro style match, as both men are really good. It's back and forth. DiBiase hits his his suplexes, his brawling, locks on a version of the $1 Million Dream, but Steamboat gets out of it with a victory roll. Steamboat does his chops, does his arm drags, goes up top for the flying crossbody, but DiBiase gets out of the way, and in the end, DiBiase is just a little bit better, as he's able to knock Steamboat to the ring with a chair shot, then go up top, hit the flying fist drop, and get the 1, 2, 3 for the big victory over Ricky Steamboat, as overall the match itself gets an 82 in 15:07. Ted DiBiase gets a 78, Ricky Steamboat gets a 77, and both men look really strong, and DiBiase gets a little bit of a comeback win after losing to Ric Flair and his big time debut. So yeah, solid match, solid way to put over DiBiase, and of course post-match he celebrates, and of course he celebrates the only way he can, by stuffing money in Ricky Steamboat's mouth to boost for the crowd, as that gets a 74, but DiBiase cackles as he walks away, triumphant with the big victory. And after that, we have our big tag title match, as of course Rockin' Country challenged Arden Berry. They sort of tossed away the idea that Rock Country would even have a shot, as Arn and Barry have been dominant tag team champions and a dominant tag team in general since they teamed up as members of the Iron Horsemen in the middle of last year. Let's go to the ring and see what happens here. So, this is there's actually a really better match than I thought. So this is a really solid, top heel team giving a mid-card babyface team chances at getting the victories, but never really looking totally out of control. Jenny gets his big drop kicks in, maybe gets a big flying forearm. Bret Armstrong gets some, good old Southern brawling. They have some, tag team, double suplexes, double arm drags, maybe even double drop kick. But in the end, Arn and Barry, just needle them both down. This isn't even, they obviously, as heels, cheat. They come in, do double teams, do phantom tags, all that fun stuff. But in the end, the reality is that, Arn Anderson and Barry Windham are two of the best tag team wrestlers in the history of this business, and Rockin' Country are good, but they're not quite that good. And that happens as, in the end, Arn drills Bret Armstrong with the spine buster right in the middle of the ring. Margetti can't make the save in time, and with the pinfall victory, Arn and Barry make another defense of their tag team titles, make their first defense of the tag team titles. Barry gets a 73, Arn gets a 77, but Bret and Marty do well because of their excellent chemistry, as Bret gets a 66, but Marty gets a 64. So again, solid win, overall gets a 78, which is, like I said, better than I thought, and a good match to put Arn and Barry over and make Rockin' Country look good in the end. But in the end, Arn and Barry celebrate to the boos of the crowd, as this gets a 74. So yeah, big win for Arn and Barry as they move on to possibly other opponents, as we'll see who's, the next team on their plate, as they sort of, in a way, clear out tag division while not even holding tag titles, going over all the other baby faces and beating Too Cold and Simmons for the titles last week. But we move on to a big triple threat match, as it's Dustin Rhodes versus Brian Pillman versus Steven Regal, of course. Pillman came out and got involved in a Dustin versus Regal match on Saturday night, saying it should be somebody like him involved in the main events of shows, not somebody like Regal or Rhodes. Of course, Pillman and Regal are both heels, but they've had their own enemy at each other. Of course, the Iron Horsemen and the Cross-Atlantic Confederation have not got along well, and that's how this match goes. As, Dustin Rhodes is the strong babyface, but he's down 1-2, but, he fights back, he brawls, he does his best. But the problem is that Pillman and Regal both want to win. So Regal, locks in on the Regal stretch, but Pillman attacks him. They brawl a lot. Pillman sort of gets the cheers of the crowd when it gets Regal, because Regal's a cocky English prick, and Brian Pillman is still, cocky asshole Brian Pillman, but he's still Brian Pillman. But, Rhodes eventually gets the advantage, and what happens is near the end of the match, Pillman hits a huge, flying dive on Steven Regal, but Regal rolls through it, but then Regal tosses Pillman to the outside, and that allows Rhodes to come out of nowhere, hit Regal with the running bulldog, and gets a pinfall victory. This gets an 81, a really good match that had fantastic geek and great wrestling, as Rhodes, like I said, pins Regal in 12:40 with the running bulldog. Rhodes gets a 74, Pillman gets a friggin' 87, and Steven Regal gets a 71. So a really big win for Dustin Rhodes as he goes over Pillman and Regal, and Rhodes celebrates as Pillman freaks out on the outside, as this gets a 73. And yeah, a really, big win for Rhodes as he tries to climb up the ladder again, and Pillman, of course, has to be upset after, not even being involved in the pinfall, which, of course, probably won't make somebody like him very happy at all. And then it's time for our next big match, as it's Vader and Sid versus Hawk and Tsunami, and let's be honest, these two teams just don't like each other, and they are going to beat the crap out of each other, and it's not going to be pretty. There's not going to be much selling. There's not going to be much psychology. It is going to be four big men just punching and kicking and shoulder blocks and throwing bombs and hitting clotheslines and no selling. So, Hawk and Tsunami, are very impressive. Tsunami's, a big former sumo wrestler who can cause quite an earthquake. Hawk is Hawk. He just, he probably hits he actually manages to hit a pile driver on Vader, but Vader basically probably gets right back up and, clotheslines him to hell. Sid is Sid, so he's throwing punches. And eventually, things do break down as you'd expect. But it looks like Vader and Sid still have the advantage because, they're Vader and Sid. Sid's a former international world, Vader's a former world champion. Sid is Sid. And Hawk, is a member of one of the greatest tag teams of all time, but he's not with that member. He's Tsunami, who, of course, has his own impressive background. And it looks like they're finally going to get the win. But what happens is, near the end, everybody's brawling. And, there's been some miscommunication so far, but, they've gotten back on track because they're Vader and Sid. But the unfortunate thing is, right near the end, Vader, it looks like, Vader is going to hit the big splash on Hawk, but Hawk is able to get Sid into the corner at the last second. Vader hits the big Vader attack on Sid. Tsunami comes in and clips Vader, knocking him to the outside. Hawk goes up top, hits the flying clothesline on Sid real quick, and gets a pinfall victory. 1, 2, 3, a huge victory for Hawk and Tsunami. As in about that fantastic King Rit Wrestling, they get the big win over Vader and Sid in 11-13. And yeah, so Sid gets an 81, Vader gets an 84, Tsunami gets a 65, where Hawk gets a 71. And yeah, I mean, this is what you'd expect. It's bloody. It's, well, they probably don't actually, they're not actually bloody because it's WCW 1994, but they're bruised. They kick the shit out of each other. And unfortunately, Vader and Sid, they can't get along. And that's a problem, as Hawk Tsunami actually get the big victory here. And post-match, what happens is, Sid is upset. He yells at the ref, but then, he turns around and yells at Vader. Vader, says, basically says, he points out you should have had Hawk ready. Sid points out, I'm the master and ruler of the world. You should do what I need to say. Vader says, this is my ring, not yours. Eventually they start pushing each other, and eventually they start punching each other. Eventually they just brawl to the back as, the crowd pops, as even though they're both evil heels, they want to see these two big SOBs fight. As this gets a 78, and it looks like Sid and Vader are now going after each other. Next up, it's time for our third match from the top, as it's for the United States title. As it's Steve Austin versus Scott Steiner. Of course, Scott Steiner is ready, and he's just ready with just an explosion of offense going after Austin. Just suplexes, T-bone suplexes, belly-to-back suplexes, belly-to-belly suplexes, vertical suplexes, but Austin, fights back with his own technical skills, taking down, Steiner in a variety of holds, trying to slow him down, but, Vader eventually, fights out of it and goes right back on offense, going after Vader, going after Austin, drilling him with a big old clothesline, hitting him with a big power slam, trying to lock him into a Steiner, into a submission hold of his own, but Austin fights out of it, Austin tries to lock on his own submission hold, but Steiner gets that kicked out of that, and eventually they brawl to the outside, get back in before the 10 count, and it looks like, Steiner's actually on his way to a big victory after hitting a huge superplex from the top rope, and he goes up for the Frank Steiner right in the middle of the ring, but Austin is actually ready for him and hits a huge sit-out powerbomb on Steiner, and that's when the end of the match happens, as both men are, Steiner's a little wobbly, and Austin is ready for him as he just comes up as Steiner gets up after that powerbomb, and cradles up, rolls him up, probably holds him a little bit, but not quite, a way to be cheating, and 1, 2, 3, Austin retains in 14 minutes, and about that fantastic King Rit Wrestling, as Austin makes defense number 3 of his United States title, as this match gets a 79, Austin gets an 81, Steiner gets a 67, so like a psychology. So yeah, I mean, this was a spot fest. This was just Steiner throwing bombs, Austin throwing his own moves, and able to reverse that Frankensteiner and get the quick pinfall victory. And post-match, Austin celebrates to a 74 as just put over, his impressive United States title run. That you don't have to like him, but he's been one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Then now it's time for our 7-way event, Bret Hart versus Ric Flair for the #1 contendership. And they start slow. Like, they're feeling each other out. Little hammer locks, arm bars, takedowns, waist lock takedowns, hip tosses, attempts at suplexes blocked, shoulder blocks. But eventually things ramp up. There's a little bit of brawl. There's punches and chops sessions. Eventually, Bret Hart hits a big old suplex on Flair, but Flair fights back with his own chops, and then he hits a suplex of his own. Flair eventually tosses Hart to the outside, but Bret comes back in, and then goes back on offense, goes after Flair. Flair hits a big, double underhand suplex on Bret, and then begin working on his knee. But Bret himself fights back the Hitman, the excellent execution. Fights back with punches, hits a side Russian leg sweep, and goes up to the second rope for the diving elbow, but Flair gets out of the way. And about 10 minutes in, it's time for the first figure 4 of the match. but it's way too close to the ropes, and even Flair's sort of, ready for it, as like he, doesn't even, complain when the ref tells him to, move, get away when Bret grabs ropes, as that was just a figure four to put more and more damage on that knee. So eventually, Flair is battling him down, big kicks to the knee breaker, a big suplex, another big side suplex, a big slam, and then a figure four closer to the middle of the ring. But this time, instead of grabbing the ropes, Bret Hart actually reverses it, which makes Flair reverses it back, and then they both tumble into the ropes, and the ref breaks them up, and then eventually they go out to the outside, and it's time for more brawling on the back. They eventually come back inside, and now Bret Hart's on offense, and he's going, he sends Hart, Flair into the corner, big heavy charge, big heavy run afterwards, big clothesline, suplex, elbow drop from the second rope, and he goes for the sharpshooter for the first time, but Flair holds onto the rope, so Bret can't turn him over. And then when he pulls Flair to the middle of the ring and tries to lock it on again, Flair gets him in a quick cradle, which goes for a 2 count, and then it's a chop and punch battle again. And then eventually Flair has the advantage, so Flair goes up top, but nope, it's too soon, as Bret Hart slams him off the top rope, hits him with a big suplex, hits the side Russian leg sweep, goes to the second rope, boom, hits the second rope elbow drop. Bret Hart goes for the sharpshooter again, right in the middle of the ring. But Flair, as the crowd cheers, both men, Flair gets to the middle of the ring. Flair slowly but surely, minute after minute, as we're past the 20-minute mark, gets to the ropes barely. Both men are exhausted. Flair, but as Bret goes after him again, Flair rolls him up in another quick cradle, and this time holds the rope, but still, Bret kicks out at 2. Flair's back on offense after grabbing the ropes. Chops, big knee breaker, big suplex, a DDT in the middle ring by Flair, as he goes up top rope again, and he hits the flying crossbody, but Bret rolls through and hits a cradle of his own almost, and then Bret sends Flair into the corner, hits a victory roll, sits down, no, still a 2 count. Flair fights back with chops and punches, and they're just battling back and forth as the ref calls for 25 minutes into the match, and they're really going after each other. Bret has the advantage, so he locks in the sharpshooter, but it's way too close to the ropes. But as he's getting unlocked from it, Flair chop blocks him and locks on the figure four, but that's too close to the ropes. And eventually that gets broken apart, and they're battling again. And in the last 2 minutes, the last couple minutes is just 2 men battling each other back and forth. But near the end, Bret Hart hits a sunset flip right in the middle of the ring. Doesn't get a 2 count at all, but he's ready to step through right in the middle of the ring. And he steps through and locks on the sharpshooter. But as he's locking it on, the bell rings. Fuck. Well. Shit. After all that, I got a bad chemistry note. That is hilarious to me. That is fucking hilarious to me. Okay, so they don't click. So this gets a 67. So imagine all that, but probably lots of no selling and lots of, yeah. Okay, well, this gets 67. Despite fantastic heat and good wrestling, Bret Hart draws Ric Flair in 30 minutes. When the time limit expires, this gets a 67. Bret Hart gets a 70. Bret gets a 69. Was there any... Yeah, I mean, odd face heel combination. Emotional high, worker chemistry. Yeah, I mean... Crap. Well, so this actually... Okay. No, I don't want to do behind the curtain quite yet, because I might still have an idea how to get out of this. But this is quite unfortunate. So, yeah. I mean, this actually also probably tanks our show rating, I think. Anyway, Bret Hart walks away upset as he had the sharpshooter in, which gets a 71. And Flair goes to the back, exhausted himself, which gets a 74, as the announcers put over the match, putting over the fact that, not ignoring the fact they didn't click. And then they go hype the big main event. It's now time for the world title main event. As first comes out Rick Rude with Sherri to a 71. As crowd puts over, that he was the man who ended Cactus Jack Ring, and he's a WWE champion. And then out comes Sting to an 84 as he hands over the big gold belt for the International World Championship. And it's time for these two men to face off. And of course, they battle. Like, it's go back to every great Sting Rick Rude match you've seen. And, it's Sting with his big power moves. It's Rick Rude with his cheating. It's Sting hitting a big superplex. And then, basically no selling superplex, popping right back up and trying to lock on the Scorpion Deathlock. But Rude setting him into the ropes. Sherri tries to get involved, but I imagine Sting doing the Hogan type thing and slamming her into the ring and making her take a bump because Sherri Martel and she's always happy to take a bump. But Martel getting involved allowed Rude to take the advantage of again. But eventually Sting gets the babyface fire again. And it looks like he's actually going to do it. He's going to win the back to WCW Championship and become the Unified World Champion as he hits the big splash. Hits another Stinger splash. He takes Rick Rude down and he goes for the Scorpion Deathlock. But Rude is just wary of it enough to poke Sting in the eye as he comes down to complete the Scorpion Deathlock. That causes Sting to fight, to step back and allows Rude to come in and hit a quick little snap suplex on him and take advantage. And it looks like he's going to go for the Rude Awakening, but Sting powers out of it, pushes off Rude, hits a big power slam, and now goes for the Scorpion Deathlock. But Sherri Martel gets involved again, ignores the, basically what happens is Sherri, kicks the title over to the corner, close to Rude. Sherri then goes up to the ref and actually she tries to get in. The ref is getting involved, gets involved, tries to stop Sherri from coming in. Rude wallops Sting, in the back of the head with the title, but it's sort of like a glancing blow. It's just enough to knock Sting back, and it's just enough to give Rude back the advantage. So Rude hits a big suplex, hits a big lit short arm clothesline, hits Rude Awakening. Sherri Martel drops down. Rude drops down exhausted. 1, 2, 3. He's your new Unified World Champion. 88, which probably saves the show, as Sting gets an 84, Rick Rude gets a 77, and Rick Rude is your new Unified World Champion as he celebrates with Martel to a 72. And yeah, good show. Okay, 85. Okay, so actually, Rude. Okay, so actually, yeah. And honestly, giving a hug. So yeah, a massively huge show. I mean, that ending, the Bret Hart Flair match being the way it was, is really freaking disappointing. Like, it's really disappointing. Because, I mean, I guess I'll say this now. Is the original plan was originally to end things in a 45-minute Iron Man match, but I just don't know what to do now that match obviously can't happen. I mean, I guess there's a couple things we could do here, but yeah, I honestly don't know how to do things. Size-wise, just as a quick check for you guys, we're slowly gaining popularity, which is good. Storyline-wise, so Steamboat DiBiase's at a 78. This is at a 61. Tag title feuds at a 78. Hart Flair's at a 73. Sting Flair. Sting Rude's at an 88. US titles at a 79. Rouge Slaughter's at 62. And Young Guns feud at a 78 as well. Creative-wise, top 5 is Sting, Flair, Rude, Pillman, Bulldog. So who do you sort of expect? Who's hot is Benoit, Bulldog, Flair, Sting, and Vinny Vegas of all people. Nobody's who's not, which is good. And yeah, some people are a little upset, but we'll deal with them at some point. If we look at our sort of top people, just to put them over. So let's see here. Rude. Did Rude jump up? Not really. Not really. He might have dropped up to a point or so, but nothing too over the top. And Sting. How did Sting? Did Sting lose a lot here? Let's see here. Sting. Nah, he lost maybe a point. Flair. Let's see here. Flair's still about as popular as he was. And DiBiase. Did DiBiase get more over? Nah, he's about the same, maybe gaining points. So no huge shifts. Austin's getting there. Did Sid lose a bunch of popularity? Nah, he lost a point. So, like, yeah, no huge shifts here. Dustin. Yeah, did Dustin gain? Oh, wait. Dustin gained like 2 points, so that was good. Pillman. Pillman is about even. Did Vader lose a bunch? Ooh, Vader. Okay, Vader, yeah. We actually kind of need to rebuild Vader bench, which is thankfully part of the plan. Bret, ironically, is in. So, Bret, yeah. Bret dropped a couple points doing the doing the draw with, and probably the bad match. But we can always fix that. You know, that's not the end of the world or anything. Yeah, let's see here. Did Hawk gain some popularity? Kind of, but not really. Steven Regal, he's about the same. And let me check out, let's see here, where even is he? He's at recognizable, I guess, maybe? Yeah, Dunn Dallas Page, popularity. Okay, he jumped about 5 points, which makes sense for getting, basically debuting on a pay-per-view inside the ring and getting a decent-sized win. If we look at our top 100s, so that was actually our second best show right behind Starrcade, so I can't complain too much. And match-wise, that was our second best match between Cactus Sid at Starrcade. Okay, so I mean, I was really disappointed over that Sting Flair match, but honestly, all things considered, that's a really good show. Not quite our best buy rate. But yeah. Yeah, good, like, again, not the end of the world for this, but, you know, it could have been a little bit better. But again, as a quick check for you guys. So, International World Champion is Rude, but that's also, we are going to retire this title. But the World Heavyweight title is now going to be Big Gold Belt. And now it's behind Rude, who's now, I mean, you could say two-time World Heavyweight Champion, probably just succession of his reign. United States Champion is still Steve Austin, who's held it since February. World Tag Team Champions are still Arn and Barry after winning it off to Golden Ron in April. And World Television Champion is still Jacques Rougeau. So fun times. So I honestly, you know, this is a bit, let me see. Oh yeah, merch-wise, Flair, Sting, Bret, honestly, Bulldog, surprising despite being heel, still number 4. Slaughter, Dusty, okay, Hawk, Austin. So yeah, interesting people. Still improving that overall. And yeah, we need to make some improvements as far as the overall size. But you know, next up, big show is of course Great American Bash. Next up is Bash at the Beach. So I guess there isn't a Great American Bash. That's weird. I'll make a decision whether I actually have that show or not. Regardless, but you know, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the show. As unfortunate that Bret Hart Flair match was, which I guess now both men have a reason to rate 1,000 words about how each other suck in their autobiographies in about a decade. So good for them. But you know, that's for now. So you enjoyed this show, you know, go ahead and give it a like. Comment below what you're liking and not liking. As I've said before, I do have the Patreon where you can sign up just to support me or to get some extra goodies, like being able to get shows early, being able to import your own character into the series, and other fun stuff like that. Again, follow the link in the video description below to look that up and make your own decision. But again, I'll be continuing the series regardless or not. And of course, you know, I've got other TEW 2020 content, including this series, my WCW 2004 series, now heading towards Great American Bash, my what we saw Slamboree, but then we're heading towards Great American Bash. We have MLW 2006 now heading towards our first big show in Univision after taking a couple weeks off, and of course my WWE 2013 series where we've got a bunch of, you know, goals based on Ring of No Juniors, like not pushing Seth Rollins, but pushing Mark Henry. But you know, that's it. So that's it for now. So talk to you later, and adios, and you have a good one.